We are back. Welcome.
Back again. Backstreet.
Answers of Life.
The Answers of Life. That's what we're calling it right now. Hopefully it's still what it's being called whenever you see this video.
Yeah.
I can't make up my mind about anything.
So we thought for our next book we would read the Bhagavad Gita. And the main reason, I guess, for that, we just did Coming Back, which kind of lays the groundwork for the principles of reincarnation, which, to even begin to like delve into Vedic philosophy, you have to understand how the philosophy of reincarnation works.
Yeah.
And so basically the Bhagavad Gita, I feel like that was a kind of a good way of easing into what reincarnation is. Way that
it's very focused on one specific aspect, but it's kind of like you said, the groundwork. It's like the baseline. If you can't at least pretend to believe in reincarnation, the rest of it's not going to make any sense.
Yes. So, so the Bhagavad Gita is kind of like the essence of Vedic knowledge, and it was spoken by Krishna to Arjuna, and the reason the reincarnation is important because they both participate in Vedic culture, so they automatically understood reincarnation. Arjuna already knew about the fact that he was not this body. So when Krishna speaks the Bhagavad Gita, that's kind of one of the underlying things, is they already are both on the same page with that.
Yeah.
So, Bhagavad Gita, it kind of, it's going to lay the groundwork for further, like the further fundamentals of Vedic philosophy and get, I guess, more in.
It's like the
into
core.
The details.
It's the core of everything.
Yeah.
I mean, he says if you're only going to read one book, read this one.
Yeah, of course. So
that may not be a direct quote, but it's pretty much what he said. It's very close to a direct quote.
Yeah, it's kind of like the summary of the summary of.
Yeah. It's the seed of everything else. And then there's all the Puranas that go into super detail about one aspect. But this is like, if you don't want to or don't have the time or whatever the reason is.
Version.
Yeah, this is like, the quick.
So there, I guess, we'll start off with, we can read the introduction, and then, there's some stuff to kind of, we'll get it out of the way. It sets the scene and to kind of ease us in.
Yeah.
And then we can read and talk as we go.
Yeah, we'll just get into it here and.
All right, so although widely published and read by itself, Bhagavad Gita originally appears as an episode in the Mahabharata, the epic Sanskrit history of the ancient world. The Mahabharata tells of events leading up to the present age of Kali. It was at the beginning of this age, some 50 centuries ago, 5,000 years, that Lord Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita to his friend and devotee Arjuna. This discourse, one of the greatest philosophical and religious dialogues known to man, took place just before the onset of a war, a great fratricidal conflict between the 100 sons of Dhritarashtra and, on the opposing side, their cousins, the Pandavas, or the sons of Pandu. Dhritarashtra and Pandu were brothers born in the Kuru dynasty, descending from King Bharat, a former emperor of the earth, from whom the name Mahabharata derives. Because Dhritarashtra, the elder brother, was born blind, the throne that otherwise would have been his was passed down to his younger brother Pandu. When Pandu died at an early age, his 5 children, Yudhisthira, Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula, and Sahadev, came under the care of Dhritarashtra, who, in effect, became, for the time being, the king. Thus the sons of Dhritarashtra and those of Pandu grew up in the same royal household. Both were trained in the military arts by the expert Dronacharya and counseled by the revered grandfather of the clan, Bhishma. Yet the sons of Dhritarashtra, especially the eldest, Duryodhana, hated and envied the Pandavas, and the blind and weak-minded Dhritarashtra wanted his own sons, not those of Pandu, to inherit the kingdom. Thus, Duryodhana, with Dhritarashtra's consent, plotted to kill the young sons of Pandu, and it was only by the careful protection of their uncle Vidura and their cousin Lord Krishna that the Pandavas escaped the many attempts against their lives. Now Lord Krishna was not an ordinary man, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, who had descended to earth and was playing the role of a prince, in a contemporary dynasty. In this role, he was also the nephew of Pandu's wife Kunti, or Pritha, the mother of the Pandavas. So both as a relative and as the eternal upholder of religion, Krishna favored the righteous sons of Pandu and protected them. Ultimately, however, the clever Duryodhana challenged the Pandavas to a gambling match. In the course of that fateful tournament, Duryodhana and his sons took possession of Draupadi, the chaste and devoted wife of the Pandavas, and insultingly tried to strip her naked before the entire assembly of princes and kings. Krishna's divine intervention saved her, but the gambling, which was rigged, cheated the Pandavas of their kingdom and forced them into 13 years of exile.
That's such an intense story.
It is.
When you read it in detail, they're glancing over it, but
yeah,
we're gonna read that too.
We'll have to read the Mahabharata because I'm getting.
If you like The Last Kingdom or Game of Thrones, like, any of that,
this blows Game of Thrones out of the water.
It's
drama,
amazing.
The intrigue. I mean, the violence, the fighting,
whatever
romance,
part of it you like.
All of that is in there, and it isn't like, even if you want to read it for no spiritual pursuit at all, just to read a good story, the Mahabharata is amazing. It's really outstanding story. Upon returning from exile, and the thing about it is, woven in it are so many valuable lessons. Like on how to just be a good person, live a good life. Like, it's amazing. It really is. Upon returning from exile, the Pandavas rightfully requested their kingdom from Duryodhana, who bluntly refused to yield it. Duty-bound as princes to serve in public administration, the 5 Pandavas reduced their request to a mere 5 villages. But Duryodhana arrogantly replied that he wouldn't give them enough land in which to drive the head of a needle. Throughout all of this, the Pandavas had been consistently tolerant and forbearing, but now war seemed inevitable.
They were so humble, they were willing to be like, look, just give us a couple villages, you have the kingdom, we'll just hang out here and do our thing.
But not only that, the really interesting thing, obviously they don't go into the detail here, but Maharaj Yudhisthira and his brothers, prior to them getting exiled, they went out with the military and conquered all of the kings in the world and subjugated them and performed a sacrifice, the Rajasuya sacrifice, which basically only the recognized emperor of the earth can perform. So he had to subjugate all the kings. That's when Krishna and Bhima and Arjuna went and killed Jarasandha. Mm-hmm. So they had to kill Jarasandha first. So they physically...
And a lot of them were demoniac kings, I believe.
Yeah, a lot of them were, but most of them were intimidated. I mean, Arjuna was all of them were great warriors, so they all surrendered except Jarasandha. Yeah. Killed Jarasandha, and then, so he physically conquered the world. It's not like he just inherited the kingdom. Yeah. He did physically go out in his own name, conquer the world, and then that kingdom is what
Duryodhana decided he was taking.
So he's thinking, oh man, Maharaj Yudhisthira, he has all the kings bowing and scraping to him. I want that. But he goes about it getting it in a gambling match, not going out with the prowess.
With loaded dice.
Actually conquering them.
Yeah.
So he's just like a huge, giant piece of work.
Piece of work.
To put it, Throughout all of this, the Pandavas had been consistently tolerant and forbearing, but now war seemed inevitable. Nonetheless, as the princes of the world divided, some siding with the sons of Dhritarashtra, others with the Pandavas, Krishna himself took the role of a messenger for the sons of Pandu and went to the court of Dhritarashtra to plead for peace. So Krishna went there one last time in person. When his pleas were refused, war was now certain. And actually in that, when he went there, he actually showed his universal form to all of the Kauravas. Yeah. And he gave temporarily Dhritarashtra, who's blind his entire life, he gave him the ability to see that universal form.
Okay, what this behind you?
And so it was kind of like okay, I'm coming here nicely, I'm asking you, and now they insulted him. He showed them the universal form to say, this is who you're up against. Yeah. No, he wasn't fighting. And they were all like, okay. But even then, Duryodhana was like, I still got this. He's a magician. He's
just
not really him. I can do it.
And also he thought that it was also partially because he felt like if he's not fighting, then what's the deal? Who cares whose side he's on?
Exactly.
Because he thought that the Lord had to do it himself for some reason. Like
and it goes really into detail about that in Mahabharata. It's
pretty cool.
Kind of fascinating.
Pretty cool.
And it's just greed. That's what it was his undoing. Greediness, jealousy. The Pandavas, men of the highest moral stature, recognized Krishna to be the supreme personality of Godhead, whereas the impious sons of Dhritarashtra did not. Mm-hmm. Yet Krishna offered to enter the war according to the desire of the antagonist. As God, he would not personally fight. So Duryodhana and Arjuna came to Krishna before the war to ask him help.
Yeah, they both wanted him on their side, basically, because they knew that would be...
Arjuna and Duryodhana got there at the same time. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Duryodhana is older than Arjuna. He goes and stands by Krishna's the head of his bed.
Yeah, waiting for him to wake up.
Arjuna waits by his feet. And so when Krishna wakes up, the first one he sees is Arjuna. And Duryodhana says, well, I got here first, so I want to talk to you about help in the war first. And Krishna's like, well, I saw Arjuna first. And anyway, they end up... He lets Duryodhana pick, do you want my personal army?
Yeah, Arjuna gives him first pick. Yeah.
So do you want my army or do you want me to be on your side? But if I'm on your side, I won't fight.
Yeah.
And Duryodhana's like, I'm taking the army, bro. Yeah. And Arjuna's like, no problem. All I want is you to be on my side.
Yeah.
So that's also another really beautiful story.
Yeah.
So as God, he would not personally fight, but whoever so desired might avail himself of Krishna's army. On the other side, the other side could have Krishna himself as an advisor and helper. Duryodhana, the political genius, snatched Krishna's army, while the Pandavas were equally eager to have Krishna himself. Yeah. In this way, Krishna became the chariot driver of Arjuna, taking it upon himself to drive the fabled bowman's chariot. This brings us to the point at which the Bhagavad Gita begins, with the two armies arrayed, ready for combat, and Dhritarashtra anxiously inquiring of his secretary Sanjaya, because the king is blind, so he can't see, but Sanjaya was basically narrating the whole war to him. So he says, what did they do? The scene is set, with only the need for a brief note regarding this translation and commentary. The general pattern translators have followed in rendering Bhagavad Gita into English has been to brush aside the person Krishna, to make room for their own concepts and philosophies. The history of the Mahabharata is taken as quaint mythology, and Krishna becomes a poetic device for presenting the ideas of some anonymous genius, or at best he becomes a minor historical personage. But the person Krishna is both the goal and the substance of the Bhagavad Gita, so far as the Gita speaks of itself. This translation, then, and the commentary that accompanies it, propose to direct the reader to Krishna rather than away from him. The Bhagavad Gita thus becomes wholly consistent and comprehensible, since Krishna is the speaker of the Bhagavad Gita, and its ultimate goal as well. Bhagavad Gita, as it is, represents this great scripture in its truest terms. The publishers.
So that was setting the scene. And we have slightly different copies of because his has a special note from the publishers, whereas mine didn't, which is what he just read. I have a question though. Is the forward you have just a preface. Forward might be kind of like a similar to what you just read already, which might be unnecessary.
Yeah.
Let's see what it says. Give me a second just to browse through it, make sure I'm not rereading what you've already told people. It's a little different. It's not really talking about the scene.
It's written by Edward C. Dillon, Department of South Asian Languages and Civilization.
Okay, so it's different. I'll read it. All right, so I'll read the foreword, and then you can read the preface. All right. So the foreword. The Bhagavad Gita is the best known and the most frequently translated of Vedic religious texts. Sorry. I'll clear my throat properly first. Why it should be so appealing to the Western mind is an interesting question. It has drama, for its setting is a scene of two great armies, banners flying, drawn up opposite one another on the field, poised for battle. It has ambiguity, and the fact that Arjuna and his charioteer Krishna are carrying on their dialogue between the two armies suggests the indecision of Arjuna about the basic question, should he enter battle against and kill those who are friends and kinsmen? It has mystery, as Krishna demonstrates to Arjuna his cosmic form. It has a properly complicated view of the ways of the religious life, and treats of the paths of knowledge, works, discipline, and faith, and their interrelationships, problems that have bothered adherents of other religions in other times and places. Properly complicated view, okay. I think I read that a little weird. The devotion spoken of is a deliberate means of religious satisfaction, not a mere outpouring of poetic emotion. Next to the Bhagavat Purana, a long work from the South India, the Gita is the text most frequently quoted in the philosophical writings of the Gaudiya Vaishnava school, the school represented by Swami Bhaktivedanta as the latest in a long succession of teachers. It can be said that this school of Vaishnavism was founded or revived by Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, 1486 through 1533, in Bengal, and that it is currently the strongest single religious force in the eastern part of the Indian subcontinent. The Gaudiya Vaishnava school, for whom Krishna is himself the supreme God and not merely an incarnation of another deity, sees bhakti as an immediate and powerful religious force, consisting of love between man and God. Its discipline consists of devoting all one's actions to the deity, and one listens to the stories of Krishna from the sacred texts. One chants Krishna's name, washes, bathes, and dresses the Murti of Krishna, feeds him and takes the remains of the food offered to him, thus absorbing his grace. One does these things and many more until one has been changed. The devotee has become transformed into one close to Krishna and sees the Lord face to face.
I was talking to Shruti the other day. I think it was when I was reading to her at night before bed. And
Shruti is his daughter.
Yeah,
just
my
to
daughter,
clarify, just in case. Most people watching this right now are definitely people that know that, but just in case.
And she asked me, I don't remember how it came up, but she asked me something like, why do we worship the deity, or what's the point of having deities?
Mm-hmm.
And to anybody of a Christian background, I mean, I used to hear it from my mom's side of the family, and not so much from my dad's side. They were a little more laid back, but, you know, oh, you're worshiping false idols, oh, you know, and that's a big thing in the Bible. But the
Well, I mean, the word false is used there for one thing.
Well, exactly. I mean, I think there's kind of like a... I think the whole thing...
Like, they don't say... Well, one thing that strikes me about that before, because I'll forget if I wait till the end, not to interrupt rudely, but just off the bat, from just like a logistical perspective, if they meant never worship any idols, why would they have said false idols?
Exactly.
What is the reason to use the word false? Now, that doesn't mean that you should just assume any and all idols are correct, because that's the whole reason they said it.
Yeah.
But they would have just said, don't worship idols, if that was the message they wanted to.
False idols.
They say false idols.
Yeah, and then some denominations of Christianity take that to the extreme, so they don't hang up anything other than maybe a cross.
Yeah,
but
that's about it.
See,
that's still an idol in a sense, though, isn't it? I mean, I guess it depends on how you define that word, but yes.
But then, like, my dad's family, you know, Roman Catholic, and they tend to have, like, in their churches, I actually find it very beautiful. Like, you know, sometimes I'll go to church with, when I go visit my family. And
there's a church in Montreal up on the hill, I forget. I think it's Saint... I can't remember which saint it is. I'm going to say it wrong. It's huge. I mean, I was there in person, and, like, the lights on the, you know, like the lanterns they have seated on the walls are, like, 2 to 3 times bigger than you are. Like it's like it looks like it was made for giants. Like they built it, and it's so big. I mean, I always say that's to make you feel small in the in the eyes of God, to make you like really think about, you know, how minuscule we are in that sense. Like, so that's the reason they constructed it that way. But it's really impressive. I mean, it's massive. Yeah,
the image of my grandma and grandpa's church that we went to for their funeral, they have a stat, like a cross with Jesus, like Jesus hanging there, and it's actually very beautiful. You know, he's there and dying, but yet he also looks so peaceful, and I find it very like calming to be in there. Anyway, but so she asked me, God dang, we get sidetracked, but it's
No, it's okay. Today we're just reading the introductory things, so we can definitely be more sidetracked than usual today.
Oh, and she asked, what's the point of deity? So to anyone that doesn't know, we worship, we keep little deities of
different forms of Krishna.
I guess you could call it a statue, generally made of metal or marble or wood.
I've never seen a wooden deity, actually.
Jagannath.
Oh, right. Yeah. I never think about the fact they're made out of wood, but that's right. You're like, yeah, you have. You see them constantly. I was thinking about all the other deities.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever had a Jagannath deity at my home, but I obviously see them at the temple. They are nice.
They're very merciful form of. But that's
it's
so
cute
that's
too. It's the brothers and the sister. The energy is very sweet.
Yeah, it's a very sweet energy. And so she make a long story short. She asked, "What is the point of having deities?" And it hit me like a light bulb right then and there. The perfect way to answer it. Yeah. Okay. And I said, think of deities. So many people will say, "Where's God? If God exists, show him to me."
Right.
Okay. Well, you can't necessarily see him right then and there.
Yes.
But just because you can't see him doesn't mean he doesn't exist.
Right.
It just means you can't see him currently.
Yes.
So when you're younger,
that's like, where's Venus? Where's Venus? Well, show it to me right now.
Your mom is at work and you're in daycare.
Right.
Where's your mom?
She doesn't exist.
She doesn't exist.
Because I can't show it to you right now.
But you know what? You're missing your mom. Here's a picture of your mom. And you can look at her. And then when you look at a picture of a loved one, it brings out stronger emotions. And you're like, oh, yeah. They're not here right now, but you're looking at a picture of them.
Right.
And that's what the deity is. Krishna isn't, you can't physically see him with your eyes, but when you have a deity representing some beautiful form of God.
Yeah.
And there's many different deities that we worship, and each of them is like, oh, this is God representing, this is a form of God representing this pastime that he performed. And this one is, representing this pastime. So depending on the mood and relationship you want to worship God, you look at different pictures.
Yeah.
You want to look at a sad picture, you want to look at a happy picture, you want to look at a scary picture, whatever, So that's kind of like, that was my realization I had the other day. I'm like, and a good way to explain it to kids.
Yeah.
Really worshiping them well. And when you put it to people that are like, oh, you're worshiping false idols, like, it's not like we're sacrificing babies in front of them. I mean, we're offering our food to it.
Yeah.
to the.
You're just showing respect and keeping Krishna in your mind. Is the point
of it.
It's a way for you to focus your mind.
Focus,
yeah.
Or whatever you want to.
Yeah. Because our minds run away from us all the time. Yeah. So it's a way to kind of help us focus, have a nice clean space in the home that you try to dedicate to some sort of devotional spiritual practice.
Something higher than yourself.
Yeah, and I think that's really good.
Shara wants to actually do. Starting today, we went to the Indian store and bought some puja.
So you can do little artis.
So that we can do little abhishek for our deities, where you bathe them and dress them and change them.
Yeah, that's nice.
It gives you something. I just laugh when I hear people say that.
It's just a form of meditation in a sense.
Yeah, when they say worshiping idols, it immediately conjures an image of like your family in the backwoods on a moonlit night dancing naked through the woods, drinking blood from a human skull or something, and it's like, no.
We only do that once a year.
Only once a year.
That's not a regular Wednesday thing.
We spend time making jewelry for the deity. We spend time making clothes for the deity, or cooking for the deity.
It's a way to make your actions service to the Lord instead of just doing stuff for yourself.
Exactly. Rather than having the center of the living room being the TV and whatever.
Yeah. I
mean, granted, that is the center of our living room, but we also are having an altar, and we're trying to not.
I'm so bad at it. I'm gonna have problems at the end of my life if I don't get my shit together without I'm taking care of my deities. I need to do a much better job of that. I get up early enough now that there's no reason, because before I always had these problems where I'd be waking up super late and barely getting to work on time. And so I would never have time. Now I'm up early enough that I sometimes will watch a show before I go to work. Or I'll play a game of Gwent, or I'll read, or whatever, depending on my mood. I do different things. Or I'll do some editing, or whatever. Before I even go to work, I'll edit sometimes. But if I'm up in time to do that, I could spend 5 to 10 minutes making breakfast, dressing the deities, giving them fresh water. It's something simple. You don't have to sit there and spend 2 hours of your life necessarily. as you're inclined to do more. But at least do something for your deities if you're going to have them. Because right now I have them and I'm not doing anything for them, and that's real bad. I'm not even.
I mean, literally,
like it's
in here. We'll get to there's a spot where
it'd be better for me not to have.
Krishna tells Arjuna
at the rate I'm currently doing.
No,
that's what I'm thinking. I feel like it's so offensive.
He tells him, all you have to offer, offer to me with love and devotion a fruit, a flower.
Oh, but I'm offering him with the idea of me not opening his blinds half the time. So that's what I'm saying. Like I feel like I need to do something. What you're saying is like doing something simple is fine. But what I'm saying is like my not doing anything is probably pretty offensive. Right. You need to offer. You need to do something for them.
Well, think about it like this.
I'm such a heathen. I don't even think about it sometimes. That's my problem.
Oh no, well, you're not a heathen. It's easy to forget. But the whole point of having some type of a word that we use often in our practice is sadhana, which refers to your spiritual practice. So it's real easy to, when you're like in the throes of some anguish that life is throwing at you, to throw your hands up and say, "Oh God, please help me out of my sticky situation."
Right.
But if you do that, but then you show no action, and not that God, it's not to say that God is like, well, if you don't worship me, I'm not going to help you. No. But if you can't even give 10 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes a day, however, to showing him with not just your words, but your actions.
Kind of like a relationship. You can't just tell somebody that you love them and then never do jack to show it. It doesn't
God,
work that
help
way.
me out. Dad, I need money now. Can you help me out? And then
tomorrow, like, F you, Dad. I'm doing whatever the hell I want to do. It's like, that's not how that works.
So your sadhana is just about building slowly your relationship, and you don't have to get drastic with it. And this applies to whatever religious practice you want.
Right. I mean, you could be your yoga in the morning, meditation, whatever you're currently wanting to do for your spiritual practice. But just if you don't dedicate any time to it, it's not going to happen. I mean, it's pretty simple. It's pretty basic.
Easy to.
Something you said I was going to liken to something that you were talking about the other day about how. Something you said the other day that was interesting. We were talking about the whole. Why are we here if he loves us so much and we're suffering and all this other stuff? Like, why do we have to work hard to not have to suffer? And it seems on the face of it that could come off as like, how is he so merciful if he's put us here to begin with? But then there's this idea that like, okay, so we were talking about the idea that like he wants us to do what we want to do. And we, at some point, decided we would like to try to be the center of our world instead of Krishna being the center. And he put us somewhere. He created a place for us to go and like a sandbox to do what we wanted to do. And if he forced us to love him, it wouldn't be love, first of all. If he forced us to want to, like, well, I'll just make it so you don't have the option to not want to be here.
It's date rape.
I mean, like he wants you to actually do what you want to do. So he's giving you this opportunity. And like you said about not being able to see him, I think if you could see somebody who is as magnificent as like the way that this is portrayed, like you wouldn't want to be here anymore. You're like drinking an intoxicant, like a love potion. So you go back, but then at some point you might still have that doubt. But what if I had stayed and tried to enjoy? Maybe I would have been able to figure it out.
That's a good point.
So he's like giving you that space. It's like when somebody says, "I need time to think." It's like in a relationship. No, I need some space, before I decide. So it's like he's like, here, take all the time and space you need. But if you ever need me, I'm here. And then you're letting him know you need him by spending some time dedicated to him.
You're reaching back out, trying to get in touch with him. Hey,
so you have to spend some time and show him now, because you told him you didn't want none of that right now. You needed your own space, and you wanted to maybe see other people. So now you got to show him that you're serious.
Yeah.
And that was just reminding me of that, and I felt like that was
very
nice.
Powerful, though. I like that.
Nice way to draw the. And I'm back to what I was reading here. Almost done with what I was reading, and then you can read the preface. Swami Bhaktivedanta comments upon the Gita from this point of view, and that is legitimate from the point of view of the sadhana. Basically, we were talking about worshiping the Murti. More than that, in this translation the Western reader has the unique opportunity of seeing how a Krishna devotee interprets his own texts. It is the Vedic exegetical? I don't know if I've ever seen that word before. Exegetical tradition, justly famous in action. This book is then a welcome addition. You want a phone?
Yeah.
Okay. Exegetical. I'm curious about that. That's a big word. Executive. I'm assuming the G has to be soft, but exegetical. It sounds like educational, along with like there's like a flair in it. Like it's sort of saying, like, you know, when you execute a duty, like performing a task. It almost sounds like a mix between like the education aspect and like performing what you've learned.
Exegesis.
Exegesis.
Critical explanation or interpretation of a text, particularly a religious text.
Okay.
Traditionally, the term was used primarily for work with the Bible. However, in modern usage, biblical exegesis.
Exegesis. Is that how it's pronounced? Does it tell you that?
It seems that way.
Exegesis? Okay.
So I would assume it's exegetical.
Exegetical.
Yeah.
Exegetical. I think that sounds right. Yeah. Exegetical tradition. Very nice. So it just basically means vast, like very minute study of the minutia of the text, basically.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, good way of putting it.
Justly famous in action. This book is then a welcome addition from many points of view. It can serve as a valuable textbook for the college student. It allows us to listen to a skilled interpreter, explicating a text which has profound religious meaning. It gives us insights into the original and highly convincing ideas of the Gaudiya Vaishnava school. In providing the Sanskrit in both Devanagari and transliteration, it offers the Sanskrit specialist the opportunity to reinterpret or debate particular Sanskrit meanings. Although I think there will be little disagreement about the quality of the Swami's Sanskrit scholarship. He's like, by the way, it's really good. Yeah. And finally, for the but it's cool because he's saying it's like, even though he did such a good job, he's still giving you the opportunity to say, no, you were wrong, because he knows it's a good job.
Yeah.
And he's letting you see it, so that you're not thinking, well, how do I know that's really what it said?
Well, not to mention,
how do I
he's
know
not
he didn't
saying
change it?
Accept it as it is or F off. He's offering, well,
saying,
this is my interpretation, and this is the way I see it. And it's almost inviting. He's essentially
inviting debate.
Inviting a debate or a discussion on the topic, which is.
He's not saying just have faith. He's saying, come, bring your questions. I got you.
Yeah.
And man, did he! Oh my God, he was in some of those discussions with people trying to like get one over on him. It was, and his explanations are so simple, but then you're like, oh. Like it's like so irrefutable because it's so simple. He doesn't get into this weird it's just like boom.
There's a Reddit subreddit thread called Eli 5 or Explain Like I'm 5.
Oh, okay.
People ask like, and it's actually really cool. Like, how does a nuclear reactor work? And you explain it like super simply, and they get qualified people to get on there. That's basically
what he's saying. Yeah,
and that's the best way to get someone to understand it. If you can explain it simply, then.
Yeah. And finally, for the non-specialist, there is readable Sanskrit scholarship. Oh my goodness, never mind. I like went back to the same line. Okay. And finally, for the non-specialist, there is readable English and a devotional attitude which cannot help but move the sensitive reader. And there are the paintings which incredibly as it may seem to those familiar with the contemporary Indian religious art were done by American devotees. So for all you American-made people out there, the scholar, the student of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, and the increasing number of Western readers interested in classical Vedic text, Vedic thought have been, wow, I'm like putting in words, okay. Classical Vedic thought have been done a service by Swami Bhaktivedanta by bringing us a new and living interpretation of a text already known to many. He has increased our understanding many-fold. And arguments for understanding in these days of estrangement need not be made.
Man, you see one of the ways...
I love this because this is just some professor. He's not like somebody who was a devotee even necessarily until after. I'm sure he wasn't. And maybe he became one. I don't know his history. But he wasn't when he read this. He was just like, this is really good. Yeah. It's very authoritative.
There's many people that... and it really is. That's the really important thing is it's not... This is something... that if you give the book, again, I'm not like saying you have to, this is the only way. No, that's not at all.
I think it'd be cool for us to read the Bible at some point too.
It would be. And there's some Jesus, he has some very deep philosophical, presentation. I think and it's this way with any religion, if you approach it with blind, there's a saying Prabhupada uses, like, religion without philosophy is pure sentimentality, and philosophy without religion is just mental speculation.
Yeah.
So he approaches the Vedic philosophy in a way that you could compare to, like, Plato, Socrates, any of these Greek great thinkers. It's logic, and he draws you logically through the whole entire process. And essentially that's what the Bhagavad Gita is. It's just logically presenting the arguments for our viewpoint and why we believe the way we believe. And if you just read it with an open mind, you can take it, you can leave it, but at least it makes you think.
I feel like even if you didn't want to believe all of it or whatever, I feel like you would still probably get something out of it that would better your life. Even if you decided, I still don't believe it fully.
Of course. I mean, just like reading anything. You read the Bible, you
learn
read the
stuff.
Quran, you read,
You can read a fictional book, and if it's done well enough, you might get a life lesson out of it anyway. You're like, oh, this is really, I never thought about it like that. Like I really like the Sword of Truth series, but that's way off topic, but that's fantastic. I feel like they do a good job with that, like showing you some, like, hard life choices and ways to be empathetic.
Lord of the Rings,
it's a great,
very nice.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic. A good study of humanity. We can do the preface before the end. Something I was gonna say before.
Short.
Yeah, the preface is like a page and a half. It won't be very long. We're about 39 minutes. We can do that in just a second. But something I think, if I haven't forgotten what I was gonna say, which I might have just forgot it, but something. What happened? Did it die?
Well, I was just checking it. How do I check it?
I don't know. It shouldn't be off like that. That probably means it died. I wonder when it died.
Oh, no. It was halfway, though.
Apparently not. Jesus. Hold on. Sorry, guys. Bear with me just a second. I guess we just try.
It was certainly recording.
Yeah, I wonder if it. Ooh, okay. Hold on a second. Hold on a second, guys. I'm going to try and do this. All right. So we're recording now. Now, assuming that battery life is good, but it looks fine. Just keep it there where you can see it. We'll see. We had a little mic issue, so the sound may or may not be great when we do this one, but you'll still be able to hear us either way.
Our grating voices.
Yes, you may just hear a little more background noise than usual if we have to use the camera, but that's all right. All right. So forgive the little bit of intrusion there. And preface, page and a half, or it's like 2.5 pages?
I'll blaze through it.
Okay.
So this is by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada.
All right.
Originally, I wrote the Bhagavad Gita as it is, in the form in which it is presented now. When this book was first published, the original manuscript was unfortunately cut short to less than 400 pages, without illustrations and without explanations for most of the original verses of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. In all of my other books, Srimad Bhagavatam, Sri Ishopanishad, etc., the system is that I give the original verse, its English transliteration, word for word, Sanskrit to English equivalent, translations, and then purports. This makes the book very authentic and scholarly, and makes the meaning self-evident. I was not very happy, therefore, when I had to minimize my original manuscript, but later on, when the demand for Bhagavad Gita as it is considerably increased, I was requested by many scholars and devotees to present the book in its original form. Thus, the present attempt is to offer the original manuscript of this great book of knowledge with full parampara explanation in order to establish the Krishna consciousness movement more soundly and progressively. Our Krishna consciousness movement is genuine, historically authorized, natural, and transcendental due to its being based on the Bhagavad Gita as it is. It is gradually becoming the most popular movement in the entire world. And so it was rising up during the time of like hippies, and it really exploded and helped to bring Indian culture over here.
Yeah.
It is gradually, especially amongst the younger generation, it is becoming more and more interesting to the older generation also. Older gentlemen are becoming interested So much so that the fathers and grandfathers of my disciples are encouraging us by becoming life members of our great society. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness in Los Angeles. Our great society, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. In Los Angeles, many fathers and mothers used to come and see me to express their feelings of gratitude for my leading the Krishna Consciousness movement throughout the world. Some of them said that it is greatly fortunate for the Americans that I have started the Krishna Conscious movement in America. But actually, the original father of this movement is Lord Krishna himself, since it was started a very long time ago, but is coming down to human society by disciplic succession. If I have any credit in this connection, it does not belong to me, personally. Excuse me. But it is due to my eternal spiritual master, His Divine Grace, Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya, Sri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada. So he was a very super powerful preacher. If personally I have any credit in this matter, it is only that I have tried to present Bhagavad Gita as it is, without any adulteration. Before my presentation of the Bhagavad Gita as it is, almost all of the English editions of Bhagavad Gita were introduced to fulfill someone's personal ambition. But our attempt in presenting Bhagavad Gita as it is to present the mission of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Our business is to present the will of Krishna, not that of any mundane speculator like the politician, the philosopher, or the scientist, for they have very little knowledge of Krishna, despite all of their knowledge. When Krishna says, Manmana bhavamad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru, we, unlike the so-called scholars, do not say that Krishna and his inner spirit are different. Krishna is absolute, and there is no difference between Krishna's name, Krishna's form, Krishna's qualities, and Krishna's pastimes. This absolute position of Krishna is difficult to understand for any person who is not a devotee of Krishna in the system of parampara, which is disciplic succession. Generally, the so-called scholars, politicians, philosophers, and swamis, without perfect knowledge of Krishna, try to banish or kill Krishna when writing commentary on the Bhagavad Gita. Such unauthorized commentary upon Bhagavad Gita is known as Mayavada Bhasya, and Lord Chaitanya has warned us about these unauthorized men. Lord Chaitanya clearly says that anyone who tries to understand Bhagavad Gita from the Mayavadi, and Mayavadi is the impersonalist point of view, so we're all one with God, everything's all one, that kind of mentality. So anyone trying to understand the Bhagavad Gita from the Mayavadi point of view will commit a great blunder. The result of such a blunder will be that the misguided student of Bhagavad Gita will certainly be bewildered on the path of spiritual guidance and will not be able to go back home, back to Godhead.
Is your mic still running? Real quick, I want to check since it was being weird earlier.
Yeah.
Okay, we're good.
Oh man, this is getting me fired up. Our only purpose is to present this Bhagavad Gita as it is in order to guide the conditioned student to the same purpose for which Krishna descends to this planet once in a day of Lord Brahma, or every 8 trillion.
Is that what it is?
8 billion 600 million years. That's significant. This purpose is stated in Bhagavad Gita, and we have to accept it as it is. Otherwise, there is no point in trying to understand the Bhagavad Gita and its speaker, Lord Krishna. So he's saying, God spoke this.
Yeah.
So if you want to get anything out of it, you
need to understand who spoke it.
You need to understand. Okay, so
it's like trying to understand. It's like taking the context away.
If God spoke it, and God is all-knowing and all-powerful, then
well, it's like quoting someone without any of the context. Because somebody could say something that's totally true in this moment, but it doesn't mean that's the way you should live your life. Like you need to know who said it, and that way you can understand their position and where they're coming from. Because otherwise, it's just kind of like a random thing that somebody said, and it definitely would be a bad idea to base something like that off of how you live your life, because you'd have no clue what the heck you were basing it on.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and then
baseless.
Everything becomes you get lost, stuck in the weeds, and
No.
This purpose is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, and we have to accept it as it is. Otherwise, there is no point in trying to understand the Bhagavad Gita and its speaker, Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna first spoke the Bhagavad Gita to the sun god some hundreds of millions of years ago. We have to accept this, and thus we have to accept this fact, and thus understand the historical significance of Bhagavad Gita without misinterpretation on the authority of Krishna. So he's saying, because Krishna is saying, I spoke this once upon a time to Vivaswami, the god of the sun god. If Krishna's telling you that, who are you to argue with him and say, no, you didn't? Because were you there?
We have to accept that this is true.
It's like, no different than...
For the purpose of understanding this
text. You're reading
text.
some scholarly text. You haven't done all of those experiments.
No.
You're assuming that the scientists that did those experiments did it correctly and faithfully, and you're taking that assumption that, this person's qualified. So if you're going to do that with science or with something else, why can you not do it with this? Is what he's kind of postulating, like just... Or at least if you want to understand the message that Krishna is trying to present in the Bhagavad Gita.
It's really coming down out there.
Yeah, I know.
Your windows are up, right?
Yeah. Bro, I've learned my lesson many times. In Florida. God. To interpret the Bhagavad Gita without any reference to the will of Krishna is a great offense. In order to save oneself from this offense, one has to understand the Lord as the Supreme Person, as he was directly understood by Arjuna, Lord Krishna's first disciple. Such understanding of Bhagavad Gita is really profitable and authorized for the welfare of human society in fulfilling the mission of life. The mission of life is something we ask ourselves all the time. Why are we here?
Yeah.
This offers some good reasons that you could argue why we are here. The Krishna consciousness movement is essential in human society, for it offers the highest perfection of life. And how is this so is fully explained. How this is so is fully explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Good, I guess we'll find out.
Yep.
Unfortunately, mundane wranglers have taken advantage of Bhagavad Gita to push forward their demoniac propensity and mislead people regarding right understanding of the simple principles of life. Everyone should know how God, or Krishna, is great, and everyone should know the factual position of the living entities. We are servants. We're not God. We can never be that. Everyone should know that a living entity is eternally a servant, and that unless one serves Krishna, one has to serve illusion in different varieties of the three modes of material nature, and thus wander perpetually within the cycle of birth and death. So you're either choosing to serve Krishna, or you're choosing to serve yourself and your senses. Oh, I want this, it'll make me happy. Oh, I want that, it'll make me happy. I want to make this person happy because then they'll make me happy if I make them happy. Even the so-called liberated Mayavadi speculator has to undergo this process. This knowledge constitutes a great science, and each and every living person has to hear it for his own interest. And how can you choose to say, you know what, I don't believe anything that this has to say, unless you've actually read it and heard it for yourself, and then made the educated decision, no, I choose to reject it, or, oh, there's some interesting stuff in there, maybe I will...
Humans have an interesting capacity to assume that what they've heard up to this point is accurate, and very easily decide that anything else is probably not accurate.
Yeah.
As if you just happen to magically be born in the perfect spot to attain all perfect knowledge by the age of 18, and after that you will learn nothing. Yeah. Which honestly, I hope not, because that'd be a real boring life if you didn't have anything to learn after you're... But you know how many people are so, like... It's so easy to get caught up in that. You hear one thing, you think it, you see it on social media, well, that's true.
That's it.
Yep. This is we don't think about it. I mean, it's
ends. I will not go beyond.
It's incredible.
This fence.
Yeah. And everything else is just true. It's wrong.
Yeah. I've been trying to be...
It's really easy to do that. I mean, I think we all do it. It's a very natural. That's what I said. Like humans have that capacity. It's very.
I think because you want to be in a comfortable place.
But I think it's important to realize that your disposition is based on that and be able to take a step back from it when it's important to. You don't have to.
No, of course.
But it should be a conscious decision that you're choosing to remain on what you currently believe and not just something we're doing by default, because then you're never getting an opportunity. If you are doing something wrong, you'll never adjust it.
True.
Because you think you're weak to admit that you're wrong, when in reality you remain weak by not choosing to admit when you're wrong so you can become stronger. Because if you never admit your weakness, you can never improve upon them. Because if you improve upon them, then they existed.
And really denying it is just, it's a very small-minded emotion, denial. I mean, God, I'm guilty of that too, but...
Yeah, it's something that we all have so much of that. Growing up especially, and even now, so defensive, and that's a one form of the denial. Now I will usually catch myself afterwards and do it, but in that moment, my first reaction is to be defensive. I've actually tamed it down a lot, but when I was like a teenager, so defensive. You could say anything to me without me. Yeah, but no, not yeah, but. It's just like.
But is. I'm sorry.
Look at that butt.
And now, wait a second. You're all of a sudden, there you are trying to justify. I'm sorry, but.
Yeah.
Trying to justify your action. So it's not really a full apology. And I've been trying to catch myself.
I think sometimes too, like you can apologize fully without. It doesn't have to mean that you didn't like. Obviously, most of the time, unless you're a complete psychopath, you're not doing it something like that, like in an apology to hurt somebody else. You're doing it because you had a reason for it. But you don't need to include that in your apology.
Yeah.
If you realize I really shouldn't have handled it that way, you could just say, I messed that up. And then in that conversation, maybe you can at some point explain where you're coming from, why, but not in the but sense. In the sense of like, I didn't mean to hurt you. I was thinking about it like this, and I'm sorry I shouldn't have handled it like that. That's very different than I'm sorry, but you did. That's different than saying I was in this because growing up I dealt with this, and so when you said that it brought it up for me. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have reacted that way. Yeah. That's still taking ownership of it. You're just also letting them know it wasn't really even you. It's some shit I'm dealing with, and I shouldn't have handled it that way. My bad. Instead of saying, well, because you did this, then I did that, so it's really your fault, and you should be on your knees apologizing.
It's a non-apology.
It's not an apology.
Yeah.
Because you're not taking responsibility for your action.
But I think the reason that we get sometimes, at least for me, I feel sometimes the reason I use the word but is because in the moment, I am sorry, but then in the moment I'm like, well, while we're on this topic, I want to bring up why I was getting upset, and granted, it's not in a healthy way, which is why I'm trying to stop that, but
I think it's somewhat the wording,
it's like
though.
You're worried that maybe if I don't say it now, it won't come up again.
Right. You want to get your side heard. Yeah.
And therefore, my feelings, then I tend to feel like my feelings, the way I felt when I did get upset, are not being justified or being heard or not justified.
Understood.
There's a word I was looking for.
Recognized? I mean,
yeah.
I gotta get what you're saying. I think that, I think it's, again, the wording of it. Because you can come up, well, not even later on, it could be in the moment, but I think if you apologize and say, sometimes when I hear blah, 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 I fly off the handle, I shouldn't. I get like this. If you don't know why, you can just say that too. Like, I don't really know why that kind of thing bothers me so much, whatever. You're still letting them know what bugged you and why you reacted that way. And you're still saying, I shouldn't have done it. As opposed to saying, I shouldn't have done that, but the reason I did that, and it's just literally just it's almost like by saying, it's just that word, it's the way you phrase it. It's that wording. Because you can let them know what happened, and then for them, if they choose to, if they're trying to whatever with you, they're like, okay, so my friend was upset, or my significant other was upset because of that, and then they may take it less personally next time, because if it had nothing to do with them, it was something from your childhood or whatever, or they may okay, well, maybe next time I'll try dressing a little differently, since that was what happened, without you ever having to say but. It's just like saying, this is where I'm coming from, and and then at the end still saying I shouldn't have done it, because I think the shouldn't have done it, we'll say that, I'm sorry I shouldn't have done that, but it's okay I did that because you did, and I think that's where that. It's not even about the word but necessarily. You're saying it's okay you did it because of what they did. Whereas saying it's not okay I did that, and then explaining why it happened, you're still saying it's not okay. You're not giving yourself an excuse. You're saying I shouldn't have done that. I'm working on it. Please call me out on it. And you can still say but it's like the energy, but it comes with a lot of weird energy a lot of times, but the word but isn't necessarily the problem. It's the way, it's what you're saying, because I know, but oh my God. Becky, look at that. I think it's just it's that you could say but at the end and be like, I guess but really does mean it's like except for, which it kind of just negates it. I guess you can't really say it, but I think depending on how you did it, it would come off less attacking. Yeah, I think you just can't say it. I just don't think you can say it.
No.
I think it's like you should just explain where you're coming from, take ownership for your mistake, and leave it at that. And if they want to then say, well, you know what, actually, I also had a part in that, and I want to apologize to you, that's up to them.
Yeah.
No matter what we think.
I was listening to some little thing on YouTube, and it was by, dang it, some Swami, Indian Swami. I can't remember what his name is. He's got a big old white beard and turban, long gray hair. Oh God, that sounds very vague.
Yeah, it's fine. Go ahead. Okay, Sadhguru.
It was like some little thing I saw on social media somewhere.
Yeah.
He was talking about how trying to control our emotions. And he said, no matter what anyone does to you, you ultimately have the choice over the way you react to whatever it is.
Yeah.
And giving up control of how you feel inside to someone else by saying, I'm feeling mad because of what they did.
Yeah.
He said it's the ultimate form of slavery.
Yeah.
Allowing an external force to control how you feel internally.
That's why a lot of people's lives never change. They end up living whatever misery they live, and maybe they have of course you have some good moments, but you end up in that same space because you never, like I said earlier, you never take ownership of it. You can't change it. If it's not you, then you're depending upon the other people to change. And even if that one person changes, somebody else won't. And so you're still going to get into those situations. Whereas if you know it's all you, and it's all you can control, and start to look at what else I could do differently, right, then you may start to have different reactions. You may start to spend less time with the toxic people that you shouldn't spend so much time with. You may start to you don't have to cut people out of your life necessarily, unless they're real bad, but you will start to live a better life because you're realizing that no matter what my problem is, like we said in another video about leaving just in time to get to work and then you're behind a truck for 5 minutes and that's the reason you're late. No, you're late because you didn't give yourself a buffer. Take responsibility for it every time.
Yeah.
And that's what's so hard to do because it's so easy to want to be like, well, it's not my fault. And so, I mean, it's difficult, especially the traffic. It's so easy to be like, wow, it's because I hit every red light. That's why I'm late. No, you're late because you didn't give yourself time to hit every red light. Like, that's a possibility. Plan accordingly. Or at least take ownership when you don't. And a lot of times we don't want to take ownership of that.
Interesting. I know we're getting sidetracked, but this is a really good conversation. I was talking to, or I sent a little article to Shara that I read at work the other day. It was written by some ex-Green Beret, and it was about, I'll have to send it to you.
Okay.
It was about like procrastination or something like that. And he was talking about how, comparing it to, like how do you move a pile of rocks? And like the picture just had this big giant freaking pile of rocks, probably about the size of a basketball. And he's saying you move a pile of rocks, one rock at a time.
Yeah.
Somewhere, like, it's not going to magically move itself. It's not, like, you just got to do it. Pick one up, put it down. Walk back over to the other pile, pick another rock up, walk over, set it down, and keep doing it. And I know a lot of people probably struggle with procrastination. I know I do myself. But it's not just procrastination with like things, but procrastination with like your own internal betterment.
Yeah.
You tend to think like, well, I'm doing okay, I'm working, I'm taking care of my family, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and I'm so busy, right? We tend to put our own self-betterment sometimes on the back burner, it feels like. Because you have you use the excuse of, oh, I'm so busy. Oh, I'm so busy. Oh, I'm so busy. And on the surface, because we are so busy. So many of us are struggling, going off to work, having kids, trying to keep, and you may even have taken care of procrastination on the surface level. Okay, when you get an assignment, you do it on time. Something comes up at work, you just knock it out right away. Something comes up with the kids, you knock it out right away. But at a certain time, I think the reason why many people are unhappy is because of the internal procrastination.
Yeah.
The not wanting to unwrap those like uncomfortable, like self-examination is really uncomfortable at times.
Yeah. And then sometimes you get too lost in the self, in that, and
But
then
see,
you're
if
still
you
not
leave,
doing
like,
anything.
This is what I found.
Because you can hypothesize about it and want to talk about it, but then are you living it is another thing too. Because there's that line where sometimes people spend plenty of time debating it, but then in their real life, are they changing anything? Are they making those adjustments? It's
you gotta just start, like, pick up a rock and just...
Right, you gotta actually do it.
So
but then you have to but then that involves taking the blame when you didn't do it that one time. Yeah, I didn't. I've been trying to work on that, and I failed that time. My bad. Because every time you do that, you're actually gonna, like, try to do it better the next time.
True. So we just got... If we live our life... Now, granted, I have never been to AA or anything like that, but I think if we lived our life more like an addict...
Like a recovering addict you're talking about.
A recovering addict, and by recovering
just
I mean,
to be
like,
clear.
sense enjoyment.
We behave like an addict.
No. But I mean that, if we lived more like a recovering addict, and treated every day like, I just need to make it.
How can we be better?
How can I be better just for today?
Yeah.
Don't worry about tomorrow.
Nope.
Don't think about, man, you mean I have to be good for the rest of my life? Like,
yeah.
Oh, that, you'll fall off the bandwagon every single time.
Yeah.
It's daunting. But if you take it one day at a time, or even one interaction at a time, if you're really struggling, wow, I really need to work on being a nicer person when I meet other people. Well, go out of your way to meet new people. Say hi to people at the store. Go out of your way to go out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And if you mess up on that one interaction, don't worry about it. Your next interaction is a chance to do better.
Right. And as long as you acknowledge you messed up, you can do better. But if you don't acknowledge you messed up, and I think a lot of it comes into the blame aspect too. Real quick before we finish this last paragraph, I know you got to go, but the other aspect of it is that we blame ourselves for stuff. Like, okay, so I've been doing this thing with Randy, a guy that I work with, not work with as in we go to work together, but like he does emotional intelligence work. I don't know what I think that's the closest thing you could call it. Like learning how to like properly analyze yourself and see what's going on without getting too in your head, because analyze makes it sound like he's like telling you to think too hard about it, which is pretty much the opposite of what he says. But we were talking about the fact that he was focusing on me, talking to me, and asking me what it was, because when you look at, like, you kind of look at the person and they have you cover one side of your face and the other side sometimes, and you kind of like look and you see what you see. Is there an emotion there? What is it that people are getting from you? Doesn't mean you're necessarily feeling that. Somebody could say anger, or you may not be angry, but it's letting you know how people perceive you. Mm-hmm. And so he's looking and they're like, oh, bright, all these things, and then, but it's closed off. There's something like I said, bright, it's welcoming, it's very like interactive. And then there's this wall at the end of it. Like there's like, it's not all the way. It's like mostly bright, and then like it almost feels like that. But then there's like that, like I liken it to like emotional unavailability to some extent. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's like the perfect term, because he doesn't like to get into like where you define it and then you're like holding on to that, because that's just a whole nother mind trap, you know.
Oh my God.
So it's just like, but emotional, but like for simplicity terms, kind of like that. And so then he asked about that and like, well, why are you doing that? And I was like, well, and I don't know, and that's the other thing. He's like. He doesn't like, because sometimes you'll start telling yourself a story like, well, I do this because blah 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 blah, and it's like that's like like it's a script almost. Is it really why you're doing it, or is that something you've told yourself? But I told him, with my mom dating when I was a kid a little bit, and it's possible that like the guys leaving and out, I kind of feel like maybe them leaving sometimes made me feel like maybe it was me because they left for, and like it could have been my fault. And then with my mom being obviously on her own so much, I felt like I needed to be like an emotional rock for her. So like like I would put like want to be there for her, from a fairly young age. And of course, I'm sure I failed multiple times and had my own meltdowns or whatever. But for the most part, I was pretty good like that. And but of course I would I would wall myself off, And so when there's some amount of like protecting myself so I can handle the thing the task at hand, which has been very useful in a lot of areas of my life, but it's not useful in certain areas of your life. And so that can cause like relationship issues, etc. So if you can't turn it off, right? So what he asked me, which is interesting, because he said, okay, He's like, so is there anything else you learned? He's like, what ages was this? And I was like, I said like 4 or 5. He's like, oh, so recently, like jokingly, you know. And then he's like, so is there anything else you learned how to do between the ages of like 4 and 6? And I was like probably wash dishes. And I'm starting to be pretty young. And he goes, oh, so are you also constantly washing the dishes? And I'm like, no. I'm like, God damn it, Randy. He's like, so why are you constantly doing this? And his point was like, he's like, there's a time and place for this. Like, it's not, because I think that's where a lot of people get hung up. If I admit it, then I'm bad for doing it. No, there's a time and place for almost everything. If somebody's cornering you in an alley, you got to get scary, mean, angry, trying to like scare them off so your life is saved. Right. You got to be in that state of mind. But you don't need to be in that state of mind when you're talking to your wife. Like, there's a time and a place for those types of things. And so, like, you have to realize that the tools that we've learned, they helped us survive at some point.
And
but
tend to hold on to
hold on to the tools. This hammer worked really well for me. But you can't hammer everything, you know? You're going to tear down that wall with a hammer when all you want to do is paint. Like, you're not painting with a hammer. Like, imagine trying to paint with a hammer. You'll break everything. No paint's going to stick on the wall. Paint's everywhere. I mean, like, it won't work. Yeah. So you have to learn that, okay, go into your toolbox and get the appropriate tool. And when you need the hammer, get the hammer back out. When you need the shield, get the shield out. But you don't just hold on to that shield constantly.
Not Captain America, one shield.
Right, it's like a kid with a baby blanket. Just hold on to it forever. Like, you need to learn to put it up and down consciously when it's necessary. And if you don't realize what doing it unconsciously is costing you, you'll never put it down. You have to realize, what do I lose? Because if you're not losing anything, why would you stop? Like, if it's only beneficial, then you're going to keep doing it.
That requires you to think in, like...
And that requires you to, like, understand, what am I losing?
Yeah.
Like, what am I losing by being slightly unemotionally unavailable? Like, what do you lose? In a sense of, like, the intimacy or whatever, like, the amount of connection that you can have with another person, you can't get as connected. Mm-hmm. And then I told him something I said I thought it was interesting because I feel like when people really need it, like when he asked me to drop it for the meeting, like, well, just drop that so it's not there anymore. And then he's like, are you going to do it? He's like, all right, I got some homework. So in 2 minutes, he told me a time, but it was 2 minutes from then. And he's like, I need you to drop it. And then I'm like, oh.
Drop what?
Yeah, and I'm like, and he's like, can you do that? I'm like, all right. He's like, we'll come back to you. And then, you know, and I did somehow drop it. But when he asked me what I did to drop it, I said, I have no clue. And he's like, good. Because, like, you know, you get in your head, like, how do I drop it? I was like, okay. So he's saying to be more open. So I just kind of sat there and listened to what they were saying and just tried to, like, not be at all defensive, basically. But, like, I didn't think about it a lot. It was just like, okay, he's saying I'm not emotionally available, be available. But I told him, right. But I told him, like, it's hard for me when you ask me to do it, because I know you don't need me to do it. But when somebody needs me to do it, I feel like, and this is my opinion and based on, like, feedback I've gotten from other people, I think that I'm capable of it. I know I've done it before, but I don't know that I unconsciously drop it a lot. I think I normally hold it up, but if, like, somebody is needing me to drop it, I'm able to drop it and connect with them better. But, like, they have to, like, be needing it. Like, they're really upset, whatever. Like, if, like, my significant other is really mad or upset, then maybe I'm able to do it more than, like, just normally. But that's not okay, really. But I told him, like, because I know you don't need me to, so it was harder for me to do it because of that. And he goes, oh, good. So you only do it with extremely needy people. And I was like, which is not what I meant. But he meant, like, you know, in that extreme, you're either only doing it when the person is extremely needing it because you've not been doing it for months, or you're attracted to super needy people because that's the only time you're able to drop it.
No, I was about to say that. I was about to say, do you think maybe that subconsciously that played a role in choosing some of your past, like, relationships? Not just romantic relationships, but
just in general. Yeah, for sure.
No, it does. That's very...
Absolutely. I think absolutely. But it's just interesting. I told him today, actually, I messaged him earlier, and I said, just so you know, I'm now constantly washing dishes, so I don't have to drop it. I said, I have a sponge and plate with me everywhere. He's like, good. Just washing dishes is a lot easier. And then...
No, this sounds really good. I would like to...
You could totally join if you want. We do it every Monday, but I know you often work. It's 7 to 10 is when we do it. He wants to open up other times, but for now it's 7 to 10. Yeah, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m., sorry. So it's like, you could probably get the kids to bed early enough. And it's on Zoom, so you can literally just go out on your phone in the other room and be on Zoom or on a computer or whatever. But yeah, I think it's really useful. Yeah. All right, we should finish this up so you can get back home to the kids.
All right.
Read that last little paragraph too.
Well, just real quick, you were saying tools in the toolbox.
Yes.
I love that. God, I used to hear that saying in the military all the time, driving me nuts. Put them in the toolbox for later. I'm like, okay, whatever. But no, it's true.
Yeah.
And I feel actually, I would say the tools in my toolbox that I'm most grateful for are some of the things that I've learned from the Bhagavad Gita that have helped me cope with things in my life, being in the military, working in healthcare for many years, and I don't, maybe one day, God, Randy can help me unpack my whole hang up and God, I know I have a lot. I mean, I'm drawn to careers that are either stressful or dangerous
or both.
And I have this need or urge to want to help people, but I don't want to do it because I'm like, I don't care about the recognition part of it. At work, I don't care if I get Employee of the Month. I never cared about that. I just do it for every interaction that I have with the patient. Hey, maybe I can make this patient's time here nice. Maybe I can make this patient smile because I know that they're really... So, I mean, maybe that is selfish because I feel happy. Selfish in the sense that I feel good.
Because you're getting that. Yeah.
Good. But, I mean, I guess it's better than I feel good by making other people feel bad. Yeah. So, in that sense, I feel pretty satisfied.
I think that's...
But this gave me a lot of coping...
a lot of ways to think about things differently, etc., to like rise above. And I think that was I'm not positive I made the point correctly, but just to make sure I did, that was what I was saying, was the fact that he talks about it like it's not that this is a negative thing. This is negative sometimes. So when you feel, you don't have to feel wrong. Context. Right. If you're doing it when you shouldn't do it, then it's not great. Yeah. But when you make yourself wrong for it, you want to hold on to it and deny it and defend it because, first of all, it is a useful tool sometimes. So you can't completely not do it ever because you may need to. But when you realize that, it's just about the time and place and the feedback, that's the important thing. And that's like, just learning to pick it up when I need it. And then it becomes a lot easier in a sense, at least for I think a lot of people would be easier to then internalize that and be like, okay, as feedback as opposed to like, otherwise you're talking about your problems and things you need to fix and all this other stuff and it feels wrong, and it makes it that much harder for you to ever let go and do anything else. Because you're making yourself wrong for it. Wrong. Bad. And it just becomes more difficult. And I'm not saying you couldn't do it that way, but it just becomes more difficult.
Even deeper to hide it from
Yeah.
yourself.
And now you're just a terrible person for having done that to begin with. And now you're just a bad person. And then you just, and it's very difficult, I think, to work through emotional problems in that way. I'm not saying you can't do it, but I think it's an issue. I think it causes more friction normally than you need all the time, at least. I'm not saying you never. Maybe there may be a time and place where that's what has to be done, but unless you're out here murdering people, I don't know. You need to feel like a bad person in that sense. Like unless you're out here doing some really crazy stuff, and even then, you may have your own issues. But I'm not condoning anything like that. I'm just saying like you have to be like really bad. Otherwise, just your little hang-ups, everybody's got them, and they are appropriate at certain times. Just learn to do them consciously and to be aware of who you are and what you are in that moment so that you know how you're affecting other people. It's like that. Just be aware. It boils down to awareness. Right, and just notice how you're affecting people. You might walk in and realize that you made somebody tense, and then maybe you can find out why. I walk in and say, that person looked really happy to see me. That's cool. Like, notice as opposed to being in your own head like would like to be and just like go do what you do and just like doing your thing and like you're just like thinking about what you got to do next and like you're not present.
Autopilot.
Yeah, you're on autopilot like we talked about before. All right.
Good talks.
Finish this up. This was so good. I know. But this is so good. This is going to be great for the other talks that we wanted to do. Honestly, I think this will really help us do that.
I feel very energized here.
Yeah.
Okay. The Krishna consciousness movement is essential in human society, but it offers the highest perfection of life. I think I already read this. People in general, especially in this age of Kali, are enamored by the external energy of Krishna, and they wrongly, which is matter, so just everything here in the material world.
Yeah.
They are enamored by the external energy of Krishna, and they wrongly think that by advancement of material comforts, every man will be happy. So by advancement of material comforts, every man will be happy. We have so many comforts today, and look at how many unhappy people we have. They have no knowledge that the material or external nature is very strong, for everyone is strongly bound by the stringent laws of material nature. And we kind of touched on those in the other book. But you have your physical laws, like time, gravity, things like that. Then you have your subtle laws, which karma, the cycle of birth and death, action, reaction. A living entity is happily the part and parcel of the Lord, and thus his natural function is to render immediate service to the Lord. By the spell of illusion, one tries to be happy by serving his personal sense gratification in different forms, which will never make him happy. Instead of satisfying his own personal material senses, he has to satisfy the senses of the Lord. That is the highest perfection of life. The Lord wants this, and he demands it.
Mm-hmm.
And not demands it in like this, do it or else you're going to burn in hell type of thing. That's just the natural state of things. Like,
yeah.
You either suffer the laws of karma or we, surrender.
Yeah.
If you live your life in the mood of surrender, even when you're suffering, you're not going to see it as suffering because you're completely surrendered. Jesus wasn't suffering on the cross.
A lot of our suffering has to do with expecting certain things anyway, having a lot of expectations, but not all.
One has to understand the central point of Bhagavad Gita. Our Krishna consciousness movement is teaching the whole world this central point. And because we are not polluting the theme of Bhagavad Gita as it is, anyone seriously interested in deriving benefit by studying the Bhagavad Gita must take help from the Krishna consciousness movement for practical understanding of Bhagavad Gita under the direct guidance of the Lord. We hope, therefore, that people will derive the greatest benefit by studying the Bhagavad Gita as it is, as we have presented it here, and if even one man becomes a pure devotee of the Lord, we shall consider our attempt a success. 12 May 1971, Sydney, Australia, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami.
That's beautiful.
Woo!
All right.
And then there's the introduction.
We'll get into that next time we read. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for listening to our rambles today. Next one will probably be more reading. There's a lot of introduction, 30 pages, so it'll probably be a little more reading, a little less discussion, but it's good.
Try to speed through it. Honestly, you could probably even split it up into two parts.
I think I'm going to split this into. We did an hour and 20 minutes on this one, or not quite, probably a few minutes because we had that little issue with the mic in the middle, but we did a decent amount of time, so we may split this one up. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
And let us know, hopefully as this continues, we can start having more discussions with whomever is listening, so feel free to comment, etc., and messages, all that good stuff as we continue. All right, well, this has been Answers of Life, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you.